David here from the Earth Medicine Academy. We're going to do an herb walk today and up this lovely area into the forest up here, and we're just going to see what we can find. It's a beautiful day on Maui. We have Polygala. This is a Polygala, I can't remember the Latin name, the specific epithet, but the genus is Polygala. The kids call this the root beer plant, and it's, I don't know of any specific uses for this. I know it's medicinal, but there's a Chinese plant in the same genus that is used to generate wisdom and also for phlegm in the lungs. But to generate wisdom, the wisdom of the kidneys involves long-term vision. So it's used for stress or for emotional disorientation, particularly when you have what's called phlegm misting the heart or phlegm in the channels. It's Chinese energetic explanations for things. The roots of this are very interesting though, because if you crack them, they smell like root beer or saffron or oil of wintergreen. So, and I believe that Lily Sue who used to live on Oahu, she's a Taoist master, would use this, I thought for liver cancer, but I'm not sure about that. And this is Hilahila sensitive grass. It's Mimosa pudica. You see, of course, it closes when I touch it. This is quite a famous plant. And this is used for liver qi stagnation, what the Chinese say called liver qi stagnation. And it's used for menstrual cramps, smooth muscle cramps. It's used as a sedative. And the name Hilahila means shy or bashful. This is a Fabaceae, and it's related to the larger mimosa trees. This has a lot of thorns in it, so if you're using this as a tea, you want to make sure you put it in a bag so you don't end up with thorns in your tea. And you want to boil this a long time because there's a chemical in it called mimosine, which causes hair loss. So if you boil off the mimosine, that won't happen. This is laukahi. This is Plantago major. This is, as I've mentioned many times before, probably the most commonly used medicinal plant in the world. It is, it's used for almost everything. It's used for, as a poultice. It's used for bladder infections, for lung infections, for bee stings, all kinds of things like that. It's also, you can actually eat it. We can take the leaves, the Plantago major leaves, and we'll spray them with a little bit of oil, coconut oil or olive oil, and put them in an oven at like 110 degrees, 115 degrees for 10 minutes or less, and then they come out. They're kind of like kale chips. They're very good. There are native species of Plantago. This is Plantago major. There are native species of Plantago on the top of Molokai, I'm told, that grow quite large. Anyway, this is a really, really useful plant, and something that even kids, most kids know about this. And you can use it, as I said, as a poultice for either, you can use it on open skin and you can juice it. So, you know, some plants you don't want to use on open skin. You can use them topically if the skin is sealed, but not on open skin because they're poisonous. But this is an extremely safe plant. And I always tell my students, if you don't know what else to give somebody, give them laukahi, give them Plantago major. This is guava. This is Psidium guajava. And this has a lot of tannins in it. Tannins astringe mucous membranes when you chew them, your mouth will taste dry. They cross-link the proteins, and my friend Bonnie Marsh, who's a naturopath, also uses them topically for injuries. And you can chew the tips here, this part here, and eat them for diarrhea. My Hawaiian teachers would do things in threes, so they would eat 3 or sometimes 5 of these, but generally 3 will do the trick. If they're too much, if you eat too many of them, they can also constipate you. And they're also used for incontinence in women, and well, men too. But yeah, incontinence by the Chinese, not the guava specifically, but plants with tannins in them. There's a Chinese category called stabilize and bind, and it's herbs. Many of the herbs in that category have a lot of tannins in them. And here we have some desmodium. This is I don't know what species this is, but there's a number of different desmodiums here. This is used as a urinary disinfectant, like a urinary antimicrobial, and it's a diuretic, and it's also used for joint pain. This genus, not the specific species, but yeah, it's a good antimicrobial. Its functions are very, very similar to Bidens pilosa or Bidens alba. So it's good for joint pain. It's good. It's an antimicrobial, and also as a diuretic for bladder infections. And there's another desmodium down here, a different species. I don't know this species in particular, but I would feel pretty comfortable using that in a tea for an infection, and possibly even topically as a poultice or a wash for infected tissue. This is a sedge. This is probably Cyperaceae rotundus, one of these sedges. These are used all over the world, or I should say, these are used all over the Pacific as anti-inflammatories. They're good for, well, again, this is another plant that's used for liver qi stagnation, so that could include joint pain. It could include emotional problems. It could include menstrual cramps, all kinds of things. These are very safe. These are sedges. The family is Cyperaceae, and that's the sedge family. And there's a saying among botanists that sedges have edges and rushes are round, and grasses have asses that fall to the ground. And that's because sedges have triangular stems, so you identify, because they look like a grass. And rushes, I don't see any rushes here. Rushes are round because they're round, and grasses have asses that fall to the ground, means that there's nodes on the grasses, and sometimes they will root at those nodes. Also right here is a Ageratum conizoides. This is Maili hohono. And I don't use this internally because it has pyrrolizidine alkaloids in it, which are liver toxic, but it has a very distinctive smell. And the way I kind of look at it is, the stronger the smell, the stronger the medicine. But this is used for hemorrhoids. My Hawaiian teachers will take this and take a big pot of Maili hohono and boil it up, and then put it inside the toilet, and then they'll sit down, and then the steam, so it's like a rectal steam, and then the steam will come up and hit the anus, and the hemorrhoids will retract, and it works reasonably well. This is also used on the skin for fungal infections, where it's juiced and put topically on the skin, and then you put the skin in the sun for fungal infections. So this is kukui. Kukui means light or enlightenment in Hawaiian. This is used, the oil from the seeds were the seeds were used in torches and lanterns and lamps, and also for body work. You can see the light colored leaves. It's quite an important canoe plant. And there's a spiritual component to the plant also. I'm not sure if this is an apple of Sodom or not. It's some kind of nightshade. You can tell because see that zigzag stem pattern? That's typical of a nightshade. And these 5-sided united petals on the flowers. This is absolutely not the kind of thing I would want to put into my mouth. This is Ardisia. For a long time I thought these were poisonous, but apparently not, although I'm not suggesting anyone eat them. But I have nibbled on them a bit, and they are astringent, very astringent, and slightly sweet sour. And these are very invasive on Maui. They'll take over whole areas, whole stands will be taken over by these plants. Yes, Marie says exactly, just like all that up there. And way up there, these are albizzias. This is not Albizia julibrisson, this is Albizia, I can't remember the epithet for this, but it's used very similar to Albizia julibrisson, which is called Hohuanpi in Chinese. And the bark is used, and the flowers, I believe, to calm the spirit and also for injuries to move the blood. This is a Melaleuca, paperbark tree. The Chinese will use this to release the exterior, to cause a sweat in colds and flus. And this is the same genus from which comes the Melaleuca oil, the tea tree oil. And reportedly the Chinese use the bark to calm the spirit. I've never done that, but that's the word on the street about that. I believe the flowers are used to release the exterior, which means to, cause a sweat as a diaphoretic. This is Clidemia hirta. It's called Coster's Curse. And this is a Myrtaceae. This is a very extremely invasive family, but you can see these little purple berries there. These are edible and they're quite tasty. They a little hairy. That one is not terribly ripe, but close enough. Yeah, so in a pinch, it's good to know that these are edible. I don't know of any other uses for this genus. Actually, for the family, there's not a lot of uses for the family that I'm aware of. And this is Uluhe fern. This is Dicranopteris. The legend has it that these were used by the old Hawaiians as a purgative. I think the sori, the spores, are irritating to the colon. I wouldn't necessarily recommend using them, but that supposedly these ferns were used by the Hawaiians, and these are native. So I think there's two different species of these that are native. So this is what the remnants of a native forest. There's a coffee here, coffee tree. This is Coffea arabica or Coffea something or other. You can use the leaves as a tea, but of course mostly we use the berries in our coffee. And then also, of course, the coffee cherries are super antioxidant. They make a drink out of them called red something. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but there's a really wonderful sweet drink. And this is a begonia here. You can tell begonias because they have asymmetrical leaves. And these flowers are edible. They taste sour. There's some more camelina here. And what else? Ardisia. I don't know what this is. Oh, maybe that's an albizia. Yeah, that's also an albizia. And over here is a thimbleberry. It's a Rubus rosifolius. This is in the Rosaceae family. Something's been eating this. These are also tend to be very tannic, tend to be astringent. You could use them as a tea for diarrhea, and they're used in the third trimester of pregnancy to bring the energy down when a woman's delivering a baby. This is our plant I talk a lot about, Cedar rhombifolia. It's these are young ones. My students call this the love plant. It has phenethylamine in it, which is a chemical that your brain makes when you fall in love. And these are edible. They're up to 25% protein. They have a little midrib on them, which is a little bit chewy. So sometimes if I'm using them as food, I will just cut the tip off like this and then just eat that part. If I'm using it as medicine, though, I'll use the whole thing. The roots have ephedrine in them. And yeah, I've been experimenting with making an empathogenic tea out of it with mimosa and kava and hibiscus flowers, which are a mild MAO inhibitor, and something else too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, really, and it's a great antimicrobial. The Cedar rhombifolia is a wonderful antimicrobial for, I can't remember which specific bacteria, but for certain bacteria it's very, very useful. And I would certainly use that. I would be more than willing to use that with a regular antibiotic together. This is another Myrtaceae in our medicine making class I talk about. This is Strawberry Guava. And again, it's Myrtaceae, lots of tannins. Certainly you could use it as a tea for diarrhea, or as a tea topical to stop bleeding, and possibly as a poultice if you wanted to debride the wound well. And the fruits they're quite tasty, very invasive, and this single plant can destroy whole native forests. And here is a larger Cedar rhombifolia. This one's unusual because normally when they get this big they have smaller leaves like this. Interesting. Normally as they get larger, the leaves will get smaller, but this is really good stuff. The one I was talking about before, that's antimicrobial and has the chemical in it that your brain makes when you fall in love. Here's a good shot of the flowering Ageratum cornizoides, Maili hohono. There are white flowered varieties, purple flowered varieties, and hybrids. And I find the white flowering varieties the strongest. Tend to have the strongest smell. This is used as a lawa'e fern. This is not the Phimatosaurus grossus. It's a different species, but I do believe that my Hawaiian teachers would use this as lawa'e. Lawa'e was typically used, the ones without sori, the ones without spores were used internally as a tea. I'm not specifically recommending that you do that with this because I've never used this one internally. And they would use the ones with spores topically as a poultice with Oxalis, with ihi pehu and ihi makole, the sour tasting little clover-like things. They look like clovers, they're not clovers though. This used to be called Wadelia, and now it has a new genus, Sphagneticola or something. This has a lot of pyrrolizidine alkaloids in it, so I do not use it. I do know that some Chinese practitioners call it Kung Fu Master's herb. I wouldn't use it internally, but reportedly it was used internally, and I don't know if it's used topically or not for that, but I'm imagining it was used topically for sprains and injuries. But I would warn away from that, especially internally. This is a Emilia sonquifolia, or a close relative. No, it's not Amelia. What is that? Crassocephalum? No, it isn't Amelia. Anyway, it's a, I don't use, in Hawaii, anything that has that shaving brush look to the flower like that. I tend to be very careful with these because if you can't distinguish the species, a number of these have pyrrolizidine alkaloids in them. This one is looking like it's taken steroids or something, but yeah, so these are used, they're called pu'ulele, which means jumping flower in Hawaiian. A lot of Asteraceae are called pu'uleles, but I don't use anything that looks like this. Oh, this is a, this might be an Erectites. Oh, I think it is an Erectites. Anyway, if it is an Erectites, I'm not sure if it is or not, it was a major herb used by the eclectics for bronchitis. But since, modern science has discovered that this has PAs, pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which are liver toxic, so I don't use this. I know some people will actually eat it. They call it Hawaiian celery, but I don't recommend that. Yes, I think this is an Erectites. It's kind of bizarre looking. And here is some of our old friend Goticola, Pohecula. Marvelous stuff. It's make it into a pesto. It's good for memory, the blood vessels. I just went and gathered some from my friend Jody's garden the other day, and I put it in salads. It's amazing stuff. It's antimicrobial, really good anti-inflammatory. The Hawaiians use it for erectile dysfunction. As I say, I make it into a pesto with basil and just delicious stuff. It's in the Apiaceae family, the carrot family, which is a little surprising because it doesn't look like an Apiaceae at all. But yeah, just really, really, really good stuff. There's probably about 50 other things that I can't think of off the top of my head that it's used for. So, oh, it's also, I think Sam Kaufman said it was used for trauma, for emotional trauma with PTSD, which is kind of interesting. Definitely good stuff. You don't want to take it with pregnancy, and you don't want to take it if you're on pharmaceutical blood thinners. There's some little bananas here. I have no idea what these are. That's awesome looking though. I wonder if they sweeten as they ripen. There's some more back over here. Right down there. Wow, look at that. I don't believe I've ever seen anything like that. Oh, and there's some more right in there. Look at that. Wow. I'm going to have a nibble. I'm surprised the birds haven't eaten that. Oh, look, it has seeds. Wow, this is one of the older bananas. Used to have seeds before they were thoroughly domesticated. Look at that. They're little hard seeds. It's sweet. Normally I would not put plants in my mouth if I didn't know what they were, but I know this family. It's Myrtaceae. It used to be in the grass family. And there are, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of grasses, and there's only one grass that is toxic that I know of, so it's a pretty safe bet. This is Jobsteers, Coix lacrima jobi. The leaves are used as a tonic to build qi. The seeds are used for a tonic, digestive aid, and also for a diuretic in bladder infections. And then the roots are used in bladder infections as a diuretic. And you can see this is a little flower of the Jobsteers. Many people don't understand that grasses are flowering plants, and this is in the grass family Poaceae, and and this is the flower of the Jobsteers. The seeds are edible. They're really tasty, but they have to be. You need a special machine to extract them. The Chinese call this plant yi, and the kernels inside of the seeds is called yi ren, and the leaves are called yi, and the roots are called yi gen. And very prolific. Once this is in your yard, boy, it'll be there forever.